Hey guys, so this week we're going to be going over a bunch of assisted locking belay devices. Uh, last week, before we left, I talked a little bit about unassisted belay, aperture belay devices. An aperture belay device, or the most common one, is an ATC. This is an ATC XP, which is the same thing except has these little ridges for extra friction. And just as a very, very brief review, it's the device where you push rope through in a bite, you clip in, and then you create friction by bringing your hand down. So this part would be clipped into your harness right here. I bring my hand down, and that the rope makes a super tight S curve going through the belay device that makes enough friction that even if your climber fell, if you're locked off, you're able to absorb most of that force with your harness as opposed to having to catch it with your hands. However, the big problem with an ATC or the two big problems is, first off, you have to lock off to catch your climber. And if something happens to you where, let's say you get knocked unconscious or something damages your hands or something like that, if for some reason you're unable to lock off or you don't have the strength to lock off, you're super, super cold and the rope is icy and you can't grip it or whatever, that can affect your ability to actually catch somebody. Assisted locking belay devices, while not a substitute for good belay technique, because again, it's like just like airbags in a car. It's not like you're like, I have airbags, I don't need to like pay attention when I drive. It's just an additional safety feature. You still want to be exactly as good of a driver, exactly as good of a belayer. But like I said, it's an extra safety feature, which I am a huge proponent of. So I've sort of broken these guys down into families. You've got the Grigri style camming locking belay devices. You've got the rotating belay devices, spring-loaded ones. These guys right here. Single piece, not moving ones, where they lock by having the carabiner squeeze against them. And then I'm just going to call this group the needlessly excessive group, where it's just completely unnecessarily complicated to accomplish a goal that other things already do. All right, so first things first, just to very briefly talk about Grigris. This is a Grigri 1 and a Grigri 2. The concept with a Grigri 1 and a Grigri 2 is the same. If you open it up, you'll see it's got like the path of the rope follows this little arc right here. Right here. When it follows that arc, that whole thing is able to pivot, and it pivots around this point right here, like that. When a climber falls, the force from things going around this loop ends up right here. So that the middle point that force arrives on is right here. Since that point is farther out than this axle, what ends up happening is it forces this thing to tilt upwards. So basically, when someone is climbing, they're climbing up, all of a sudden they end up falling, and when they fall, what ends up happening is this part lifts up and squeezes the rope right here. To disengage, all you do is you just pull back on this. You start lowering people down nice and slow, which is great. Big difference between a Grigri 1 and a Grigri 2, outside of the fact that they adjusted the lever, so the lever is no longer has such a high pivot point. Mostly these things are just designed for smaller ropes. And if you look up the specs online, they'll tell you that they're rated for 9 to 11, or like 8.9 millimeter to 11 millimeters of rope, but they're really not. They're designed for like a little less than 9.5 to like around 10.3. Or actually, it says right on the belay. Yeah, so it says right here, they actually give themselves a star rating, which I think is kind of comical. If I can get the camera to focus. Focus. You might have to trust me, but it says it right here. Basically, they give themselves 3 out of 3 stars for 9.4 to 10.3 millimeters. They give themselves 2 out of 3 stars for 8.9 to 9.4, and 2 stars for 10.3 to 11. And if you think about the fact that 2 out of 3 is a D grade, they're giving themselves a D for 2/3 of the rope diameters they say that you can use this thing for, which is not exactly a sterling endorsement by the manufacturer. However, these things are great for thinner rope diameters. And Gree, the original Gree is made for 10 to 11. And so, like I said, in the era of thinner and lighter ropes, nothing wrong with Gree 2s. They're fine. These things are great. The reason that we use them at Hangar 18 for so long is because, in my opinion, they're my favorite one on the market. Gree come in a whole bunch of forms. One of the other things that I wanted to mention, so first off, there's a Gree Plus, which is like a normal Gree, but it's got panic pull protection. So if you basically, it's supposed to be a little easier to lower, and if you pull too hard, it'll lock back up. I don't recommend buying these. They're like more expensive, and if you don't trust somebody to be able to do that, they shouldn't be doing it by themselves anyway. There is the other forms of Grees. There's a bunch of other ones. One example is this guy, which is what's called a Grion, which is essentially a Gree for industrial use. It's got like a pin to seal it closed so you can't unclip it from the rope that it comes with. They make another one that's kind of cool where it's called a EXO. I think they still make these, where it's designed for firefighting, and it comes with a Kevlar Technora rope and like a little grappling hook type thing. So basically, and then all of the plastic parts are made out of like this high temperature like Kevlar-ish substance or something. And what the idea is, I do not own one of these, not being a firefighter, but what the idea is that you go in with your rope, you put the grappling hook or whatever around, something stable and hook it back to your rope, and then just bail out the window using one of these and just lower yourself down with that modified version. I grabbed this guy also. This is a Gree 2. One of the normal failure modes of a Gree is the spring and the lever breaks. If that happens, it's not like good, but it's not going to drop your climber. The camming mechanism still works exactly like it does normally. It's not like dangerous. It just means that this thing can get stuck open, and you don't want to use a device like that because it can get caught on things and disengage unintentionally. So a couple other ones in that family. The original version of like the Gree Plus is the Edelrid Eddy, which is a German company, Edelrid, which made a bunch of really innovative and not the highest quality of thing, in my personal opinion. The cool things about the Edelrid Eddy that's different from a Gree, and these came out a long time ago. First off is the aperture that you clip the carabiner through is big enough that you can actually cycle the carabiner through even when it's locked, which you can't do with every belay device. And that's like not a safety feature or anything, but it's just kind of nice. One other thing is that it clicks and locks closed. So basically, when you open it, you slide it open. When you slide it back closed, it actually locks in place, and then it like can't open outside of that. The big selling point of these, though, again, is this is the original belay device that had the panic pull protection, which is, again, if you take this, you pull too hard, then it'll lock back up, and then you have to reset it and pull it again. These things are horrible to lead belay with. Like, they almost don't work to lead belay. They're really not designed for it. And the other thing is that this part of it right here can break, where if this part pops out, then the lever all of a sudden will just cease to function at all. And if that happens, it's not going to drop your climber, but it's like really difficult to lower them. This is the Madrock Lifeguard. These things are great. No complaints about these. The only thing is that the rope, when you load it, is not protected. And so hypothetically, there's a chance of this rope being low and like catching on something. But that's like one of those things where if you're looking for a reason to like complain about something, that's fine. But mostly these things are exactly like a Gree. The spring mechanism in this one is like pretty cheap when I got it, and so it is not the best. But they are lighter, if that's like a big important thing to you. Lastly, there's Petzl rigs and Petzl IDs, as is seen in the movie Prometheus and many other things. These are like an industrial strength Gree. They're stronger in Gree-Grees. Setters and climbing gyms are switching to these. These are not a belay device. They're a descender. You can also ascend with them. They've got this big honking handle to lower down with. You can lock them into locked mode where they don't go up or down. They're just stationary. But occasionally you'll see these places. So that's what they are. Next type of belay device is these guys. The most well-known of these is the Cinch, the Trango Cinch, which has been replaced by the Vergo. But basically what the concept is here is that instead of having a camming mechanism that's separate on the inside, what they have is just sort of pivots where there's one plate pivoting against another. The way that it works, you load up the rope like so. You clip in. Once you're clipped in, you've got it set up like this on your harness. If your climber falls, what ends up happening is that due to the fact that you are pivoting the device, so basically, since the device is loaded like this, and you're just sort of pulling on one of those plates, what ends up happening is that you're pulling that plate. This is anchored to you. This part right here is anchored to you. This part in the back is attached to your climber, and they're getting pulled in opposite directions. When they get pulled in opposite directions, this part squeezes shut on. Let's see if I can show you the right part. Squeezes shut on this part of the rope. So your climber is climbing, it slides through. Your climber falls, and it squeezes down so tight that you can no longer pass rope through. These things are super cool. The way that you feed slack with these is very, very easy for lead belaying, where instead of like any sort of thing where you have to manipulate the lever, you just twist the device and then you can feed slack, because you're just preventing that locking mechanism from engaging. But yeah, good belay device. There's a couple iterations of these. The difference, and they didn't call it the Cinch 2.0 or anything, they just started using better equipment. The main difference is the pin that they use for the lever. They had a slight issue with it failing because, I don't know if you can see this. Basically, the reason why this looks all messed up is because it's got a bunch of cracks in it because it is cheap aluminum. And then this is a newer version where it's all clean and it's much better. Also, this could be cheap steel. Also, it's cheap metal of some kind. I shouldn't make statements if I'm not positive. But both of those are very good belay devices. The Sum is like a significantly worse version of these. It's by Fader.